that should never happen. I just couldn't believe that it came to that.
It was one thing when the guys were fighting, but when she jumped in it, I was just taken aback. I was floored.
The former mayor is now giving more details about her investigation. But first, that fight that broke out yesterday during the Thornton Township meeting. It happened as a community activist and frequent Henyard critic was speaking. He apparently insulted Henyard and called her a name, and that is what a witness says. Henyard's boyfriend confronted him, and then the chaos began. Police say by the time they arrived, everyone had calmed down, so no arrests were made. It is just one of many issues for the embattled Dalton mayor. Lori Lightfoot's office has been investigating the mayor. Lightfoot just spoke to Paris Schutz within the hour, saying the big issue she saw was there was little to no tracking of the township's expenses.
There was no real contemporaneous record keeping. Most of these purchases, if not all of them, violated the Dalton purchasing policy. There was no purchase orders. They weren't accounting for what they were spent, no receipts. There wasn't centralized purchasing of the goods and services. I mean, it was an utter mess. And then meanwhile, these things, some of them showed up on the warrant list that went to the trustees for approval, but a lot of these purchases didn't.
Thornton Township residents say they just want a resolution to all of the chaos that is continuing to go on. One local alderman addressed the violence at that meeting in a statement sent to Fox 32. Alderwoman Monet Wilson of the 2nd Ward in Calumet City, which is in Thornton Township, says, in part, I unequivocally condemn the appalling violence and chaos at last night's Thornton Township meeting. What should have been a space for governance was turned into a battleground of aggression, both physical and verbal, fueled by misinformation, corruption, and reckless political warfare. This disgraceful behavior is not just unacceptable, it is a direct threat to our democracy and public safety.
Yes, we are back, and we are black. Yes, sir. Here on WLTH 1370 AM, straight out of the cannon with me, Scott Cannon. Here it is 7:29 in the PM. Here on January the 31st, 2025. And what you just heard was a Dalton town meeting turning into absolute chaos. The woman in the center of it, Miss Tiffany Aisha Henyard, who is the mayor of Dalton, Illinois since 2021 and is the supervisor of Thornton Township. That in itself is a pretty bad idea. She was the first female mayor of the village, as well as the youngest mayor in its history. She was elected when she was only 37 years old 4 years ago. And now Miss Henyard is considered the worst mayor in America. Yes, Miss Henyard is been named, she's been dubbed America's worst mayor. She's been criticized for her use of municipal funds, a lack of government transparency. The village board filed a lawsuit against her in her first year, which claimed that she had conflicts of interest. She's been facing allegations of spilling, as you heard in the video, spending the funds of the village without proper approval from the boards of trustee or the village clerk. Just a few years ago, Fox 32 published an investigative report on her use of a police security detail, noting that this practice cost the village hundreds of thousands annually. And just last year, the Board of Trustees adopted a resolution addressed to the Cook County State's Attorney, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, Cook County Sheriff, and the Illinois State Board of Election, calling for an investigation into Miss Tiffany Aisha Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, Illinois, and supervisor of Thornton Township. And she vetoed the resolution, but her veto was overridden. Trustees for the city of Dalton have claimed that the city is headed towards a multi-million-dollar deficit as a result of reckless spending under Ms. Hinyard. Countless residents and employees and business owners have accused Hinyard of using her office to retaliate against any political opposition. She's been accused of using the police department to harass business owners who did not support her and tried to extort campaign contribution from business owners. Good God. Just last year, Redeemed Christian Church of God's Power Assembly filed a lawsuit against Mayor Hinyard and the village of Dalton, alleging that the village had discriminated against them. And also last year in March, after reviewing files obtained through a FOI request, NBC made public that the Indiana Department of Human Rights actually investigated Hinyard for a matter in which her former assistant was alleged to have been sexually assaulted by one of the village trustees, and when she complained, she was retaliated against by Hinyard. Now, again, we're not that far from Dalton, Illinois. We're right across the border here in Indiana from Chicago, from south side of Chicagoland. But to me, the reason that this story is an issue is because it seems like we're seeing a lot of black mayors who have been popping up lately. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when I was a kid, all we heard about was Hatcher. Hatcher was the standard. Hatcher was in a lot of people's minds, the incorruptible, steady hand that Gary had for 20 years. I believe it was 20 years. And you had a few others like Harold Washington. Harold Washington, almost universally beloved and respected. But now we seem to be in this era where black mayors, I don't know what's going on here, but it seems to be that there's a whole generation of black mayors who've come into power, who've lost the plot. Like talk about America went have any real black political country. The Compromise of 1877 up until 1990. That's 123 years. We didn't have a black governor in this country for 123 years. We had one in the 1870s, didn't have another one until 1990. Over 120 years. During Reconstruction, there were over 2,000 black politicians in the South. Black mayors, black governors, black senators, black congresspeople, all over the South. And that's why you ended up with the Compromise of 1877, where the Democrats and the Republicans got together and decided that the black community in the South could not have any more political or economic power. That's how you go from that to the black codes and eventually to Jim Crow, which lasted into the 1960s officially. But here we are now in a new day where the three biggest cities in America, New York, Chicago, LA, all have black mayors. And all of them are trash. Let's just keep it 100. Eric Adams in New York City, the biggest city in the country. He was called the nightlife mayor. Why do they call Eric Adams the nightlife mayor? Because he likes to go out clubbing on Fridays and Saturdays. This is a guy who encouraged a lot of the immigration from all these people coming into the country and made a lot of excuses for it early on until it started to overwhelm the city of New York. Now he sounds like Donald Trump. Shortly after becoming mayor, he sought a waiver from the Conflicts of Interest Board so he could hire his own brother for a $200,000 job in the NYPD, where he would serve as the head of his personal security detail. Again, we know Trump does stuff like this. We know white people do stuff like this all the time. I'm not saying they don't. But do these people not know that they are under a special microscope because they are black? That is what I'm asking here. In 2022, he fired almost 1,500 municipal workers in New York City who refused to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Now a lot of those workers have filed lawsuits against the city of New York, and guess what? A lot of them are winning, which I told you guys was going to happen then. You can't take away people's right to bodily autonomy. You can't force people to get a vaccine. What is wrong with you? And so now we're seeing the lawsuits pile up against the city of New York and Mayor Adams about that. Just in September this last year, investigations into his administration found that he ended up with him being indicted on federal charges of bribery, fraud, and soliciting foreign campaign donations. The case was unsealed and revealed that the 5 charges, bribery, conspiracy, fraud, and 2 counts of soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations, started essentially in 2014 when he was still the Brooklyn borough president. He was accused of receiving luxury travel and other benefits from people from Turkey. Turkey? Namely, a Turkish government official and Turkish business people. This included Adams pressuring the New York City Fire Department to open a Turkish consular building without a fire inspection. Allegedly, in order to cover up for the misconduct, he created and instructed others to make false paper trails indicating that he actually paid for these trips in full. So again, the biggest city in America, the biggest spotlight in America, why would somebody like Eric Adams not understand that he is under a microscope and act accordingly? The second largest city in America, Los Angeles. They have a new mayor named Karen Bass. She came from the House of Representatives and the California State Assembly at first, but she's been the mayor since 2022. Now, you guys know they just had wildfires, horrific wildfires in California. At the start of January 2025, while these wildfires were happening, she was attending the inauguration of John Mahama as president in Ghana. Now, this was after she promised to not travel abroad during her term as mayor. She promised. She made a promise. Broke it immediately. Broke it pretty early. She returned to Los Angeles by U.S. military transport. Prior to her departure for Ghana, the National Weather Service issued warnings of extreme fire weather conditions and an impending windstorm. So they knew that the conditions to create these wildfires were happening. And she still left the country anyway, knowing this. Again, where is your awareness as a black, especially as a black woman, to know that you got to cross all your T's and dot all your I's? And you can't give them anything to get you on. When the Palisades fire started erupting, she was attending a cocktail party at an embassy, and she posed for photos while her city was burning to the ground. The LA Fire Department Chief Kristen Crowley criticized Bass for cutting $17.6 million from the annual budget to the fire department. And it has been noted that a lot of the fire hazard conditions had been known well in advance and that the fire hydrants in Pacific Palisades lacked pressure. Cowley warned in December of 2024, just I guess about a month ago, that the $17.6 million budget reduction approved by Bass had reduced the department's emergency response capabilities against events like wildfires. I know the Trump people went on and on about the DEI hire. Kristen Crowley seemed to be one of the few people who was competent and knew what the hell she was doing. It's not her fault that her budget got cut. It doesn't seem like Kristen Crowley is the one to blame for all of this. The $17 million budget cut came after Bass initially proposed a $23 million cut from the fire department's budget. And now we have Chicago, right across the border here, our neighbors to the west. Brandon Johnson, a man who I am disappointed to say that I supported. I supported him right on this show when he was running for president. Running for mayor, I'm sorry. Me and the Rev talked about it when we were on Fridays. I just thought, this is a new generation. Get the old guys and old folks out of there, you know. Chicago needs new blood. He comes from the activist world. He'll be a breath of fresh air. Oh my God. Have I been wrong? He's been accused of spending inappropriately. He's been accused of allowing Chicago to be flooded with illegal immigrants, to the point where Donald Trump actually did better in the city of Chicago than any Republican had done in decades. Donald Trump did not win Illinois as a state, but he did better than a lot of people thought he was. He won 45% of the vote in Illinois, if I'm not mistaken. And Brandon Johnson is a big part of that reason. The man is completely tone deaf. He has his own people, black people, at city council meetings screaming at the top of their lungs for him to resign. Where is your awareness? Which unfortunately brings us to our own town, Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana. Where we've had nothing, well, other than Scott King, we've had mostly black governors for decades. Black mayors, I'm sorry, for decades. Our city council's black. Most of the politicians in the city are black. Most of the people with any real, at least, power on the surface. I'll just say on the surface. We know that there are people behind the scenes who have money and influence who are not black, but most of the people that you can complain to are black. And we just saw a situation where we've had, I think, 3 or 4 Calumet Township trustees have to resign and or go to jail in a row. Our very last mayor just pled guilty to misappropriating funds. It rarely goes by a few months without somebody from the city of Gary or a politician in our community here in Northwest Indiana, often a black politician, being either charged with something, being accused of something. And I just have to ask, because we are in we were the blackest city in America for many years. I think for about 40 or 50 years, Gary, Indiana was the blackest city in America. Chocolate City. And there was a pride in that, in the sense that we had fought as a community, not me, because obviously I'm not old enough to go back 40, 50 years, but we as a community had fought through civil rights. We had fought to end segregation. We had fought for the opportunity to get in these positions of power. And yet, as soon as we get in these positions of power as black people, it seems like we squander these opportunities. And so what's next after that? What's next after that? They say, well, I'm going to go get a white man. We all know that. We all know that's coming next. Oh, well, we tried to get a brother a chance. We tried to get a brother a chance. We tried to give a sister a chance. And when we see the same people, the same nepotism, the same cronyism, the same incompetence, the same, misappropriating of funds, all that. Call back, caller. When we see that, it is obvious at that point, a lot of people, even a lot of our own people, are going to give up on the idea of self-governance by our community. And so I ask, what responsibility do these politicians have, not just to their constituents, but to the black community in general? Adam Clayton Powell understood that he was not just representing whatever part of New York he was representing. He was representing black people nationwide. Hell, he was representing black people around the world. Harold Washington got it. He got that he was representing black people. He was the biggest black face there was in American politics when he was elected. He got that he meant something. Not just in the city of Chicago. Harold Washington meant something everywhere. Richard Gordon Hatcher, our former mayor. People all over the country celebrated when he won. He saw being the mayor of Gary, Indiana as an obligation to his community. He thought he had an obligation to his community. That's how we ended up with, hold on, caller. That's how we ended up with the National Black Political Assembly of 1972 here at Westside High School. Because he saw it as an obligation, a responsibility. He didn't just see making himself and his friends rich as the obligation. He saw it representing the black community as a whole, not by just saying, I only care about black people, but by showing that he was competent, that he gave a damn, that he could be trusted. He saw that as his responsibility. Where is that at for Tiffany Henyard and for Brandon Johnson and for Eric Adams and all these politicians that we have now here in the city of Gary and in East Chicago and Hammond and all these other places that can't stay out of jail? Yes, I know the white man has done all that. I know Hispanics, I know Asian, I know politicians do what they do around the world. But after what we've been through in this country, don't you think that you have a little bit more of a responsibility to represent yourself and your people? Let me get this caller. Hello, caller.
Hey, Scott.
What's up?
Listen, you're right. I mean, you're on point on a few things, but listen, you know that now, because I know you watch that MMA fighting events, correct? Okay, then. Now, you know that guy from Oklahoma, man, he was always calling everybody out in the yard. People call people out here. I ain't got no problem with nobody calling me out. So guy called me out, I ain't got no problem. But look, you know, that guy from Oklahoma, he was up there calling people out, telling them he wanted to go out in the back and fight and stuff. But see, over there in Dalton, see, when you call a black person out, see, it be on and popping, no matter what it is. You see, when you call somebody out, he know nobody wasn't going to go outside. Now, back to the mayors. I'm going to just switch y'all real quick with the mayors. Now, you know, the other guy up there, he drew, 12 years? He was taking some money. He was right there, right next door in New Jersey. You know, that Latino politician, right? He just got 11 years, correct?
Right.
Okay. So the other guy in New York, he was facing the same thing, man, but he flew down to Florida, man. He trying to tighten his situation up, you know. He's looking for some kind of pardon or clemency or whatever he's looking for. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
See, this what happened, man. See, we get clouded, man. See, the money cloud your, you know, it's the way you think, man. You see what I'm saying? And then right here, man, see, we could always point fingers at each other, man. But them are individuals. Them are not the township. The township is clean. But the people get in there and their vision get clouded. The people, now, when that lady, when she went up there to Africa, right?
Right.
And she said she wasn't going out of town. Now, I don't know. Now, the logistics lies in the lies. Because way before then, that $17 million, it was more than that. It got misappropriated some other kind of way. Now, they want to put that on her. Now, she a woman. Now, I'm right behind her because I don't believe she had nothing to do with that. That fire, they don't know. The jury's still out on that fire. You see what I'm saying? We don't know what happened to that. Now, to me, it looks suspicious. See, the optics is everything. Why did all of a sudden California burn down? Why did the migrants pop up? You see what I'm saying? All that's that outer limit type stuff, man. So we got to be vigilant and don't jump on everything that we see because they done planned this way before you got up in the morning. They had planned this 5 or 6 years ago. You was asleep, I was asleep, and they had planned it all this.
But we gotta be looking out. We gotta be looking out.
See, no, dude,
if you in that position of power, you got to know they coming.
But see, this is what you do. You go in a dark room with good batteries and a flashlight. You don't go in a dark room tapping and hitting on a flashlight and expect for it to go off, just like they knocked down your guy's Juneteenth thing. You see what I'm saying? How you think Jonathan Booth would have felt if he was here? Now, I don't know if he's looking down or looking up, but I don't think he feels good about this knockdown Juneteenth. You have a good day. No more pony rides and peanut butter sandwiches.
It's all good, brother. Thank you for calling. Thank you, everybody, for listening.